If you've been watching this channel, you know that I love my passion projects. I think they're a great way to get out there, build up a portfolio, and try new things. So today I want to talk about my first passion project that I've shot with this, my new Sony FX6. I've shot with this camera quite a bit since I got it a couple months ago, but this was the first short documentary that I've shot with it. So let's talk about this project, what I like about shooting on this camera, and some lessons learned for the next one. All right, first, let's talk about what went well. Mark is a miniature artist who does these really cool miniature teabag paintings, and he was just such a joy to work with from start to finish. When I first found him online, I was just so blown away by his art, by the detail in it. I started thinking about like what type of personality does it take to do art like this? We had our initial phone call and he mentioned that he also used to do model trains as a hobby. And those two things, the tea bags and the model trains, I felt like were sort of spiritually connected. Watching his process was really cool. The amount of detail he can get in these little tiny canvases is just unbelievable. He's a true artist, and he really made my job easy by giving me some great sound bites to use in his interview. So I'll talk about some lessons learned for next time in a bit, but first I want to talk about my experience shooting on the FX6. Before this, every camera I've owned has been in a DSLR body. I had a Canon DSLR to start, then I had a Lumix S5, which I'm shooting this video on. So upgrading to a rig like this, a real cinema camera, was an experience. A few things I really like: there's a bunch of physical buttons, stuff like your audio, your ND filters, slow motion's right there at the click of a button. So you don't have to go searching in all your menus and trying to remember where stuff's laid out. It's just right there, like boom, at your fingertips. There's also a bunch of programmable buttons, so if you have other shortcuts that you want to add in, you can easily customize them. The shooting experience I like. This camera's got a good weight to it, and the way I have it kitted out, the heavier it is, the easier it is to control and get stable shots. You minimize your hand jitter. I like to hold it where I have the side grip like this, but if my wrist starts to get tired, I can also move to this top handle grip. So I did that quite a bit. And then the last thing is I have this V-mount battery on the back, and this lasted so long. I shot for like 4 hours straight and only used 50% of the battery. So that's really nice, right? You don't have to carry around these little tiny camera batteries in your bag or your pocket and always worry about what your battery level's at. Obviously the image quality is a step up from something like the S5, but really for me, what you pay for when you upgrade is the convenience. It just makes shooting so much easier. Now that being said, anytime you get a new camera, you have to get used to it. And this mini dock was that experience for me. Solo shooting is so hard. Like, you're doing 4 or 5 people's jobs alone, from audio to lighting to producing, like having that rapport with the participant. And then of course on top of that, you're manning the camera. So when it came time to shoot the interview, I was really happy with how the frame turned out. I like that there's kind of motivated lighting. There's a little bit of mixed lighting between the daylight and then this like warm indoor light. And that was all intentional. It was probably like the most grip I've done on an interview before. It was cool. I really liked it. But given it that it was my first time solo shooting with this camera, something bad happened. What I usually do is rig out a little arm and I mount my monitor on top of that so that when I'm sitting in the interview chair, it's just right underneath my eye line with the participant. So if I want to check my focus, it's not like I'm turning my head while they're talking and distracting them. And just peek down and, okay, verify that we're good. But given that I was solo shooting with this new camera, I made such a dumb mistake. I unplugged my monitor to mount it onto my usual arm. Then I plugged it back into the wrong HDMI port, so it wasn't giving me an image. So I sort of panicked and I thought that the monitor was broken. And I was like, okay, it's time to improvise. So what I did was I moved the built-in monitor out. I had it turned so that it was about, it was 90 degrees out of the field of my view, but that meant that I couldn't be constantly monitoring focus. I don't know why I didn't just turn it on to autofocus. I couldn't tell you. When Mark sat down, I did make sure that he was in focus enough on the little monitor. I got my peaking going, but of course in an interview, people are doing this, right? They're moving all around. So I set it and forgot it, and it was the wrong thing to do. So if you look closely, the interview frame of Mark is a little bit of soft focus on his face. Honestly, I don't think it's terribly noticeable, and I kind of like a softer image sometimes, especially when I'm doing stuff like this that has like a film emulation on it. And to further sell that effect and kind of cover my back, I cropped this into 4:3. So it's got like that vintagey look to it. The irony is that this mini doc is about slowing down and enjoying the moment. And I only made this dumb mistake because I was rushing myself. I should have just taken my own advice, but now I know. And that's the thing with solo shooting. There's so many jobs you're doing that there's so many variables that can go wrong. And I'm just adding this one to the list of things that I've learned the hard way solo shooting. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. But let's talk about some lessons learned so that this kind of mistake doesn't happen again. First of all, just know your equipment. Even when you think you know your equipment well. I've had this monitor for a year. When you're juggling all these things as a solo shooter, your mental bandwidth is just limited. Like 20% of my brain power is going to 5 different things at once. So in a normal circumstance, I would know the difference between HDMI in and HDMI out. But when I'm also thinking about lighting and conducting the interview and the audio, stuff happens. Now, another thing I'll say is I want to be more intentional about how I set my aperture. I shot the interview at f2.8, which I like for an interview because it separates the subject from the background, but it might not be the best decision if you're solo shooting. If your participant moves forward or back, they're going to go in and out of focus because that depth of field is so shallow. And if you can't constantly be manning the focus ring, you might be in trouble. And then finally, just practice. Practice, practice, practice. Shoot as much as you can. I think for me, there's a difference between taking the camera out on a walk or when you're going out with friends and like vlogging and shooting a short doc, because shooting a short doc is story first. You have to think about how your shots are going to be laid out in sequence, and it's usually a longer shoot as well. So that really changes everything. But I'll say it again, personal projects are a great way to get in more reps. And honestly, that's the silver lining of all this. I'm so glad that I made this mistake on a passion project and not on a paid client shoot. That would have been bad. So final thoughts. Love the Sony FX6. It's such a nice upgrade from shooting on a DSLR body. Next, solo shooting is really hard. The only way to get better at it is to do it. For me, I think I just need to try to take my time more, not get flustered. And I've noticed that every time I do a project like this, I get a little bit better at it, but it's really hard to solo shoot, to do all these different jobs at once. So I think the presence of mind to just slow down a little bit, really make sure everything's dialed in, I think that goes a long way. And then finally, shoot your passion projects. Hopefully my failure is just more evidence of how important it is to shoot passion projects. Because it's low stakes, you're only letting yourself down if something goes terribly wrong. They're also just great for your portfolio, they're good learning opportunities, and they give you a chance to have total creative freedom. So big thank you to Mark, thank you for watching, go check out the finished video, and I'll see you in the next one.